Let me just have a look. It's quiet. Usually the one train's up there screeching.
There's so much stuff going on. Just got me thinking about all the people I care about the most. There's a breeze off the Hudson. And just when you think you're sick of living here, the memory floods in. The morning light off the fire escapes. The nights in Bennett Park blasting Big Pun tapes. It's a story of a block that was disappearing once upon a time in a faraway land called Washington Heights. Who's gonna notice we're going? Say it so it doesn't disappear.
Washington Heights!
Look who's home! Bad changes happening on the block since you've been at school. When it came to dreams, we had to keep scraping by.
Heights Q+A.
It's silly when we get into these crazy hypotheticals. You really want some bread, then go ahead, create a set of goals. I pick a business school and pay the entrance fee. And maybe if you're lucky, you'll stay friends with me. They used to say, if you work hard, you live by the rules, the things will come, and those things will heal you. I'm not gonna sit here and give you some fairy tale. Ignore anyone who doubts you. Cause this place, this is it. 1, 2, 3. I just want to see the whole world through her eyes. Let's go!
Go show them who we are.
Today's all we got, so we cannot stop. This is our block!
This is the moment when you do better than me. Because you can see a future that I can't.
Sonny, you're late. You know you love me?
We are not powerless. We are powerful.
We'll get the dough, and once we get going, we're never
Thank you, everyone, just for the opportunity. We have wonderful, wonderful students lined up, and I'm really excited for you all just to meet them.
I am from Texas, so I am down south. I am a down south girl at heart. So watching this, it was so exciting for me to feel like that I was in Washington Heights in New York. I just loved every bit of it. I was like, oh my God, now I have to visit. So how important was it for you all to make sure that people had that same feeling that I had and really felt and understood the culture?
Well, first of all, it makes me so happy to be talking to you all because I was a sophomore theater major when I started writing this thing long years ago in 1999. I was exactly where you are when I wrote the first draft of this. And then it started getting good when Quiara came on board a few years later in 2004. And I grew up in Northern Manhattan. They do, when you start studying musicals, you want to write about a world where it would be plausible that people break into song. And I didn't have to look any further than my own block to find that. You can't walk one block in my neighborhood in the summer without 4 different songs coming out of 4 different speakers and apartments and bodegas and cars. There used to be a Chinese food delivery guy who had a boombox strapped to his handlebars who would go by my house every day. So it just felt like the most music-filled place in the world to me. And then the additional sort of bonus was that when John, our director, signed on, he insisted on filming it in the actual neighborhood on location. You'd be amazed at how rare that is, but no place looks like our neighborhood. No place has these mountains and these parks and these buildings that, like the characters in it, kind of have to figure out a way to survive on this mountainside. So we got these buildings that curve around hills and they don't look like anywhere else. And so, to actually film it in the place it's about makes all the difference in the world. So we just put a lot of love and care into making that right. And also, I'll tell you, Quiara and I still live in the neighborhood. So we had to get it right because otherwise we didn't get yelled at by our neighbors for the rest of our lives. Like, hey, the movie was fake. So we had an extra pressure to get it right because we're still there.
I also think like point of view. What's the more recent Rocky film where I'm from Philadelphia originally. Now I live in Washington Heights. And they're one of the more recent Rocky films. I can't remember if it was Creed or
Creed 2?
Yeah, Creed 1. I don't think I saw Creed 2, but it shows like the Philadelphia skyline is like somewhat iconic, I guess. If maybe it's a laughing stock a little bit, but the thing that I liked about Creed 2 is when it showed it in the distance through all these electricity wires, and I was like, that's the Philly I know. It's not like the shot of Philly from Center City, it's the shot of Philly from the neighborhoods, and you look through all the power cables to see those buildings. And it makes me think of this one, just this one little detail that John Chu did that really is like, how do you like capture the vibe of a place and its people? So when there's the scene where they're all dancing before the dinner scene, so they're in the like tight apartment building and they're dancing, and John Chu, we got the camera level like down to hip level, so it feels like you're in the dance as opposed to looking at it from a distance or eye level, like you're kind of with the bodies. And I think that point of view of like being with the bodies, being with the people, being in this space, capturing it from different heights, feels more immersive and like experiential, like you're there dancing with them.
You had a really great question. Go ahead and ask.
Unfortunately, I think she just answered my question. But hello, my name is Christopher Johns. So my question was, I wanted to know what was the thinking process in regards of transforming the stage musical into a film. And you did just say that you brought the camera to hip level and everything, and it made the audience seem a lot more immersive into the film. So can you just talk to us a little bit about that process and why it was made into a film instead of like a live action musical or something like that?
Well, one of the things I feel like on stage, a character's transitioning from scene to song, you kind of just buy it more because it's all make-believe. That's why you pay for a ticket to see the make-believe. In a film, I feel like the transition from scene to song works a little bit differently because it's not all make-believe. We were actually on the streets of Washington Heights, and yes, they are streets that are filled with music, but so that bought us some leeway there, but I wanted to really focus on that transition being seamless. So that's why at the beginning, Usnavi, that's why I put him telling a story. Because if we know he's telling a story, we know he's embellishing it. And he tells us at the beginning, the streets were made of music. So that's like that's like his vibe. That's how he sees his life. That's how he remembers that day at the pool. Like we were all singing. It was so hype. We were all singing. So that was one of my focuses in terms of adapting it into a screenplay.
Thank you so much. Jordan, can you go ahead and ask your question?
Of course. So I love the original In the Heights, but for me, in the film, the scene where a character is revealed is undocumented completely stole the show. But this is not in the original musical. So as you guys adapted this story for this moment in time, what was the importance of making this addition?
That was new from me, and honestly, I think that this year has been really rough on everyone, but the last 4 years were also really rough. And, the struggles of our undocumented family members and neighbors are not new. These are decades old struggles in the community, but the rhetoric around it was brought to such a fever pitch. It's like we're not even talking about human beings anymore. And so I just felt like that's what this community would be talking about more proactively right now versus when we made the musical, over a decade ago. So I had to address it. We wanted it to feel like it could happen right now. And the reason I chose Sonny to tell that story is because he's always a particularly likable character, and he's young and he's innocent, and he's the one. Usnavi's like, this isn't my island, I want to go over there. But Sonny disagrees with him, and Sonny's like, no, this is my home. New York City is my home. I have no other home. I don't have this like island dream with you. So for him to be the one that actually has the biggest bar to get to claim his Americanness, I felt like those two things in contrast could be powerful.
And again, I mean, I think it was brilliant that Quiara did that, because he's also the most invested in his community. If you watch the number 96,000, the question is, what would you do with this money? And everyone kind of goes into their self-interest. I go to business school, we, soup up the store. And he's the only one who goes, I'd invest in the community. I would fight gentrification. Like, I would invest in us. And again, like, to then turn and say, that kid doesn't belong here. Like, again, I just think it humanizes this debate that so often dehumanizes the people on the receiving end of it. So I just think I think it can do a lot of good too in the discourse.
Sierra, you had a question?
Yes, so you kind of touched on a really good thing. Aside from the musical numbers being so great, you touched on a lot of heavy topics such as gentrification, poverty, and again, immigration. So why was it so important to talk about that within the film/musical?
Well, I'll start because, all of these themes are present in the stage musical as well to varying degrees. And again, I think that if you are trying to capture a community as we were trying to capture it, and again, this isn't Fiddler on the Roof where everyone's from the same town and everyone's like, this is where everyone is from everywhere. So our focus was, what are the things that they share? Where are the places where their stories meet up? And again, if you are trying to capture it with a degree of authenticity, or as much authenticity as a piece of musical theater can allow, you have to be kind of honest with the circumstances that they're facing. And, I'm a lifelong resident of Upper Manhattan. I've seen it change a lot. I remember I was your age and in college when the first Starbucks landed on 181st Street, and a lot has changed since then. That was in 2000. Gentrification is a reality that this neighborhood faces. Immigration issues are realities that this neighborhood faces. Rising rents, and then you want to go from those specifics that I think people understand to the deeper questions. Quiara and I are both first-generation kids here. Our parents were born in Puerto Rico, and so the deeper questions are, when you grow up here and your parents are from somewhere else, where's home? Like, what are the things they pass on to you? What are the burdens and sacrifices that you inherit? And how do you both honor that? Like, I mean, speaking just for me, like, honor the fact that my parents made miracles happen so I could go to college, and understand both the burden and sacrifice that, but also like go my own way and live a happy life and don't live indebted to that burden. That's like a real nuance that doesn't get explored a lot. And I'm sure some of us on this call are experiencing that nuance to some degree. But again, that was worth exploring. So it's really not thinking about issues as issues, but just more given circumstances for our characters.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to add. I totally feel everything that Lynn said. I would just add that the decision to include those things, it just comes from such a personal place in my own life of, as Lynn implied, like I think about gentrification. Again, I'm from Philadelphia, but my family came over they were farmers in Puerto Rico. And so their first spot that they came to in Philly, there was a lot of green space around. There was a park at the end of the block. There were old trees on the block. And as they got pushed farther and farther north out of Center City, now where they are, there's no green space. There's not a tree on the block. And so this is for people that work the land, so gentrification, it pushed them farther away from that history of their relationship with the land even. So I just think of very personal answers. And with the poverty, I just think about like my abuela making rice and beans, and all the neighbors wanted to go hang out at abuela's house. And with rice and beans, I don't know, with the same pot, it was like there was always enough for another plate. Like the ethos of you save a plate for whoever's going to come through.
We had a song called I Saved You a Plate that we cut in 2004, because that is the most Latin thing of like, you missed it, but I saved you a plate.
Yeah. So just those personal life experiences that you know, gave us a lot of our ethics and our worldview.
Thank you both so much for just sharing your experiences with the students. I know we're running out of time, but this means so much to just get insight as to why In the Heights came out the way it did. So thank you.
Heights.